Welcome back, everyone, to Buying Local. I'm your host, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media. Joined here today by a friend of mine, Jay Ingleston. And so I just butchered his name a minute ago, which if you've listened to more than one of my cringy podcasts, you'll know that I often do that. I have a thing with names, apparently. But what's really funny, though, Jay, is every time I think of you, I think of there's the Viking show, Vikings, and there's a priest on that show, and his name's like Ingleston or something. It's like kind of similar to your name. Right. So every time I like walk around, I think of you, I'm like Ingleston or Ingleston, and then it just messes it up.
Anywhere I go, everybody they're like, "What's your last name?" And I'll say Ingleston. I immediately hit the E on the keyboard. I'm like, "No, it's I." But a quick story is my fiance, who we're getting married this September.
Oh, congrats!
Still can't spell my last name.
That's funny.
Is it Ingles or is it GEL? I said it's LE. The way it's not supposed to be.
It's going to be your last name, possibly soon.
She still has to ask, and I'm like, just shaking my head.
That's funny.
So it is what it is.
So we're here to talk about a book, your fourth book that you wrote.
My fourth book. It's my sixth overall. I have. A week after I released this book, I released a 365-day journal.
Oh, nice.
When I released my first book going on, I believe 4 years ago now, it's crazy. I released basically it's called Scribbled Letters. You can just write whatever you want in it. Yeah. But I released it under my daughter's name, so she'd have something cool to release on Amazon.
So we're going to talk about the book. I think you brought a copy for me. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's your copy.
Very nice.
These are...
I have Let Me Fall Apart. I did read it. So we'll talk about that too. But I figured, before we get to talking about the books and what they're about, and maybe we should talk a little bit about you and your story. So why don't now, if you've listened to the podcast before, Jay's been on with Don Walton. They have a successful fighting promotions organization called Elite Fighting Promotions, right?
Yep.
And they're going to be on again next week, actually, because they're getting ready for another show they got coming up here in February 8th.
Live at Chowderfest.
And we got someone calling in here. So, Jay, take it away. Tell us who you are. What?
My name is Jason Ingleston. I'd rather be called Jay, not a big fan. If I could legally change my name, I would, but my mother would kill me. We've already had that discussion. I started writing poetry in 7th grade. I can vividly remember, and actually the girl that I wrote a poem to still reminds me today when I see her, because she ended up being, she is my daughter's great aunt. Okay. Her husband died, which was my daughter's grandmother's brother. Okay. Anyway, we were kind of dating back in like 7th grade-ish, so this is like 1991, 92. Actually, 1990. Shit. And I think we broke up, and I just wrote a love poem. Yeah. And it's gotten crazy ever since. For the last 30 years, my first book, Scribbled Letters, that I released, I want to say 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I can't remember. Anyway,
time's flying, man.
It's flying. It sure does.
Was it pre-COVID or post-COVID? Or during COVID?
It was pre-COVID. So it was 4 years ago.
Okay, so 2019, 6 years ago. We're 2025, baby. In 2019, that's.
I don't have of course I don't have a freaking date on it. Anyway,
it's timeless.
That book actually debuted at number 44 on the Amazon Top 100.
No kidding.
They have an average of 13 million books on Amazon on any given day, and between the ebook and the paperback, we debuted at 44.
That's amazing.
Which 44 is my number that I like. 44, for an example, like it keeps you like on your path. Okay. That's what it's like. The angel number is. Okay. And I see it everywhere. So like anytime and 77 is the year I was born. So
same.
So I have that tattooed, and I see that number everywhere. So that's why the new book is called The Path Ahead: 77 Insights to Improve Your Life. And I see that number everywhere. Yeah. And there'll be days where a totally shit day, and you just whatever. Life ain't going the way you want, and that number will either drive in front of me, or I'll look up and it's somewhere, and it keeps me grounded for sure, and it keeps me thinking that all right, I'm on the right path. Yeah. This is hey, you're doing the right thing. So, initially Scribbled Letters gets released. My goal going into that was, hey, maybe I'll sell like 3 books, 5 books. That'd be cool.
To see my mom, my cousin, my best friend.
And everybody in the brother bought it. And I did a book signing. I had a couple people there and stuff, but people seeing the book signing on Facebook, my phone legitimately blew up. Either text or calls or messages on Facebook. Hey, can I get a copy? Well, luckily I have to buy them because I'm self-published, but I had bought like 100 books. Nice. So I distributed all 100 books. I call it the Scribbled Letters tour because I was driving here and driving there and dropping them off. So the first book I think I sold, I want to say around like 1,200 copies between buying them and then Amazon.
Yeah.
But the majority of the first book was like stuff I had written, and it's weird how I could write something in like 1995 in like 11th, 12th grade or whatever, and reading it later on going, wow, that directly correlates with what the hell's going on in my life now. And that was like what that book was. It was kind of like, holy shit, I wrote that and whatever. And then when I wrote Let Me Fall Apart, which is my most personal, like that's all, like, and it's a weird thing. These books are a reflection of my feelings and my emotions. And it's the first book, the night before it got released, was like the most nerve-wracking, nervous.
Well, there's a huge vulnerability.
Yes,
that.
Being
like,
that.
Anytime you're putting yourself out there. And I was thinking about that as I read that Let Me Fall Apart, was just, it takes a lot of guts in order to put something like that out into the public eye. You're going to, because like we were talking about earlier, right? Freaking haters everywhere, right? Someone's going to give you some shit. And then, with a book like that, like you could tell that there was a lot of emotion behind it and some pain and you working through stuff. And, you start putting that out there and people are going to have stuff to say. And it's like, oh my God. People,
the most vulnerable. For people who don't know, it's very, again, going back to the night before, like I was miserable but scared. And then I'm like, that's me naked. To the world. And then when it comes out and it blows up like it did, I'm like, holy shit, now like there's no secrets. Like you read the first one, then the second one, it didn't sell as good, but I think all total I've got I might have sold like around 3,000 between the two of them. The third book that I didn't bring with me because I don't have a copy of
that's funny.
Is Today There Is No Tomorrow, which I released through Barnes & Noble. Not to talk bad about Barnes & Noble, I went into that thinking that it was going to be a better platform, and it turned out to be not what I thought.
It's really fascinating, the book publishing realm. I've done a little bit of research on it, and because with the marketing agency, we've actually had people that are authors that have come to us, and whether they had a book they'd written, they're trying to market the book, or they're getting ready to release a book and they're looking for help marketing, whether they were self-publishing or not self-publishing. And it's really an interesting industry, especially now compared to what it was maybe 15 or 20 years ago. It's a completely different industry, but also like the amount of money you don't make as an author. Like even if you sell 1 million copies, like that does not mean you made very much money because of the way that whole industry works. It's freaking crazy. Man.
And then like, cause I had leading up, like this was like the first book took me, the initial thought was probably 20 years ago. And then to actually release it, going into all that, I did the old, well, let's check out this publisher. Let's talk to this literary agent. And then, well, you got to pay the agent this much, and then you're only going to get this much. And some of the contracts that you see, you're only making like less than $1 a book sometimes. So you got to sell like this many. When self-publishing, like everything you see is I designed, I bought that, I designed this. The first book, that's blood under a microscope.
Oh, no kidding. Well, so that's why I brought that up. I wanted to ask you about the publishing process. So you're self-publishing.
Self-publishing.
And you're doing it through Amazon?
Through Amazon.
Now you are.
Yeah.
You tried Barnes & Noble.
I tried Barnes & Noble for my third book. Their quality wasn't as good. Like I felt like I'm not saying I got sold a bag of goods that wasn't what it, but a lot of the upsell when they say, oh, self-published with us, wasn't what I thought. With Amazon, see what happened with the first book, since it debuted at such a high part, they throw it right out into their mainstream, and you're basically getting free advertising. So that's kind of facilitates that. With Barnes & Noble, there isn't like anything like that. And I was told that when you sell through Barnes & Noble, that it'll be available if you want in a store. Well, that wasn't the case. Like, I had to contact somebody from this one here. The one in Albany was a little bit more receptive, but they're like, no, you can't. If you're self-published, we don't take you. I'm like, well, I think I've seen a self-published person. And you're like, yeah, you can come in and like do a signing, but it's all on you. I'm like,
right, like you have to buy the books.
I have to buy, like I'm buying. Well, that's the thing. Is like with Amazon, there's such a good blueprint that they use with like getting it out here.
Well, they have a whole marketing system for books.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, and the best part about Amazon is it's 70-30. I get 70, they get 30. But if you do the bigger distribution package they have, it's 60-40.
Interesting.
So I do that. So these two books, including this one, are all on like around the world. Yeah. Like I have screenshots of my book in like I don't even know the name of the country, like and the language that it's in.
That's cool.
And that's what they do. And then all these, like the first two, ended up on Barnes & Noble with the new one because that's the I forgot, worldwide distributor or whatever, expanded distribution. So it goes to all these different sites. Barnes & Noble, you're just on Barnes & Noble. So Amazon will push you as far as they can because it's not, they want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
You put like, all totaled for this book, I started working on it probably end of April last year, and just to get everything that I wanted right, because I wanted it to be a little bit more of, you know, you're doing your daily affirmation type stuff, but I didn't want it to be like the redundant stuff. Get up, look in the mirror, like that type of shit.
Yeah.
So I made sure, like, when I did it, I'd look at it and go, all right, would that motivate me? No, I'm going to erase that one. And then I had it set. I'm going to do 77. And then it went up to like 118. I'm like, no, we're going to keep it at 77. Like, just so I didn't get out. Yeah. And then, truth be told, I have probably enough content, like quote and poem wise, to do 3 more books. I could release them tomorrow if I wanted to. That's how much content I have. But the majority of my time is taken by like what cover I want, what I want to do. Something has to catch my eye. Like I'll be on fucking hours just looking at different places to get like information and stuff. And then I just came across this was on Canva, believe it or not. So was this like Let Me Fall Apart, the cover from that.
Canva's pretty cool, man.
I bought the rights to this for $1.
Sweet.
So, and the third book kind of correlates with the same exact for the cover for that one. But with this one, I just wanted to be basic on the back, which is just a picture of me with my Double Deuce shirt on from Roadhouse.
Nice.
Just writing stuff that, you know, people can, you know, relate to. Not something where they're going to be like, I don't even understand what that means. Because I've dove into books and like read it and go, okay, how am I supposed to take that? So, like for instance, this is a basic one, and I just told about looking in the mirror shit. And
before you read it, do you want? I see you keep going down the talking your mic. Do you want to adjust that so it's there's a right on the side right here. There's this little thing. If you loosen, this guy here, that'll raise it up. Or if you want to change the angle of it, there we go. Because I kept seeing you do that, go down. Like that can't be comfortable.
This is good for my neck. So, like for instance, and on this one I put notes underneath, so people want to like write whatever. Lend a helping hand. We're all going through something, and then I have this little blurb underneath it where it says kindness costs nothing but means everything. Another one is talk to a stranger. You might gain a new perspective or a friend. Just little things, nothing too crazy where you change a flat tire on the side of the road for somebody, like shit like that. But like pay it forward, kindness given is kindness multiplied. Just small things that like my mind never shuts off. So it's always constantly about what can I write next or.
So these like And forgive me, because I don't know a ton about poetry other than like reading some Yeats when I was like 20 or whatever. You know,
Right.
so I was trying to impress a girl. But like Let Me Fall Apart obviously was, when I was reading through it, it seemed like there was kind of like maybe three things that were going on in that book. One was heartbreak from like a breakup.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
Second was loss of a friend.
Yep.
And then the third was just kind of you just trying to work through the normal trials and tribulations of life, right? The
Correct.
obstacles that you face.
Yep.
And those were the three things that kind of I kept seeing in the things that you were writing.
Yeah, and that's where the title came from. It's just like, instead of trying to like reach out for help, just let me fall apart.
Yeah.
Let me shit and get emotional.
You know, it's funny. Well, you know, it's funny that you say that too, because I used to have a very close friend. He moved away, still a friend. I still love him, but he went through some really crazy stuff. And when he was going through that stuff, like everyone was trying to help him and trying to fix him. And he was just like, we were in a conversation one day. He just looks at me and goes like, he's like, dude, can you stop freaking trying to fix me? I don't want to be fixed.
Yep.
I just want to go through this.
Yep.
And like to your point, right? Like fall apart and then figure out what life is after that.
And
you know?
in this book, I will 100% say, not because I wrote it, but it changed my perspective on life and realizing that not everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to be peachy. You're going to make some fucking dumb mistakes in your life, but you have to, like when I wrote that, like the majority of everything in that was written in probably a span of not even 6 months.
Okay.
Everything in that book. And I just sat by myself and just soaked up and marinated in the shit part of life. And I 100% think it definitely, I don't say it made me stronger, but it just made me realize that it's not all, you're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be.
I don't know who put that myth out there, actually, that you're supposed to be if you're not happy all the time, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. It's like, when the weird thing is like, when I wrote that and then I read it back, it was like I was reading it for the first time, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of my writing in the beginning, like the newer stuff, I'll be cerebral about it and I'll think about it. But that stuff would just flow. I wouldn't have any forethought of what I wanted to write. Yeah. And then I would write it and read it back later and go, whoa, like, yeah, okay.
Do you think like writing it was kind of just like catharsis, just kind of helping you get through
it was
the things that you were
experiencing? It was better than any shrink I could go see, any counselor, any, lending hand of a friend. And that's why I named it Let Me Fall Apart, because I think I needed that, because again, between heartbreak, just overall missing certain people, and, you go on with life and you think, oh man, if they were here, how would they react? Like what would we be doing now? And that type of shit.
Yeah, I felt like I could see that in the writing, like that some of it was, like the loss of a loved one from a relationship, but then other things just like you were missing someone that maybe wasn't like a relationship person, just someone that was in your life kind of thing. Yeah.
Like my friend right here, his name was John Howard Bigelow. He died when we were in high school in 1995. He got struck by a train, believe it or not.
Oh my God.
And like ever since he died, I always like wondered, like, I got to live my life. How would John, like, what would he be doing now?
Yeah.
How would he react? Like, he never got a chance to, get married, have kids, any of that type of stuff. And while this was going on, my daughter lost one of her good friends at 10 years old.
Ugh.
From brain cancer. It might have been 11.
That's awful.
And I immediately empathize with her, because I remember how I felt when like, I've lost two best friends. Like, the tattoo on the back of my tricep is Dan Lafayette, which this book is dedicated to his father, who recently passed away a couple of years ago. Just how would things be if they were still here? And then Sage going through that, like,
those what ifs, that'll just drive you mad.
Like his name was John. It's weird. This is how crazy life is sometimes, Mike. My buddy John dies. She loses one of her best friends named John. Dan is buried in the same cemetery as John. They died on the same day. And they're 30 feet apart where they're buried in the same cemetery. And like when that happened, it just like drummed up all the stuff and knowing what she was going through. And it's weird how you got to go on But there's always like a little piece of like wonder. The wondering why is the worst part. I think when people
that's what I'm saying. Like that would drive you crazy.
Yeah, when people die, it's just like, but older people are different. Like I lost my grandfather.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's still around. Like he was 91 years old.
Yeah.
When John was 18 years old when he died. Dan was in his mid 30s. Like there's so much life to live after that.
Yeah.
And that weighed heavily. And of course, when you're in heartbreak, you're thinking the lowest of the low. And,
oh yeah.
And that's like, if my legacy is whatever it's going to be for my daughter, I take this book and give it to her to see where like I was at that time. And then this book is more like happier stuff.
Yeah. So when you look at the new one, now, is this more like daily affirmations?
Yes.
That's how it kind of felt.
Yeah, it's all daily affirmations. It's just like stuff that I would brainstorm. I like on my phone, I'll flip my phone up and go, all right, here's an idea, and I'll jot it down.
Yeah.
Well, with this, like forethought, I'm like, I'm going to just put 77 rows through 77, and then every day I would add stuff. And then finally I went past 77, I'm like, all right, now I'm up in the hundreds now. And I deleted all them.
Yeah.
Like, I probably could have used them
now,
again.
did you go back through and like pare them down and move them around?
Yeah, I moved them around. I deleted some and then added some. Like, it's just, I wanted it to be basic for somebody who would wake up. Say you wake up on a Monday and you're feeling like shit, and then you just open the book and it's not like you got to be happy, but look at life differently. Like, worry less, enjoy more. Life is better when you're focused and positive. Watch a sunset. Let it remind you that every day ends in beauty.
So let me ask you this. When you're writing these, obviously for the Let Me Fall Apart, you're writing it as a part of healing. Right. When you are going for these affirmations now, are you writing them down for yourself? Or what's the intention behind putting these things together and putting them out there?
Trying to keep myself in a good frame of mind, positive wise, again, so we don't. Everybody has a tendency, and it's weird because I did a lot of like research. The way that humans think, instead of thinking positive all the time, we always hang on negative.
We love it.
If we get something in our head, we're gonna like totally dive into that, as opposed to you have this positive thing over here, but you're like, but that guy cut me off, and what you're thinking about the negative. So I've been trying to get on the more spiritual thing, and this kind of helps. But in my mind, when I wrote it, I said, I'm going to write it. I haven't read it completely through yet, because I read it enough going through whatever.
Right.
But I like to, like with them books too, I'll wait a couple months and then I'll dive into it and I'll read it again. Like I don't even know that I wrote it. And that's happened. It's such a weird dichotomy of things. And then with this, like I already have in my mind, March 1st, I'm going to start living everything that I wrote. And the approach that I had was, I want people to just wake up and see that, yeah, life can be shitty, but if we kind of put a thought on our mind when we first wake up, and then we could write notes about the day, like that's the original concept of that. I wanted to have like a note underneath it where people could be like, this poem helped, or this poem, blah, blah, blah. And I finally got to do it with this one. So, and the affirmation thing was just like, I can go right back to the day I said what I wanted to do. And we were on vacation last year and in Orlando. And I'm like, I want to do affirmation, but I just want to like write down shit. And then towards the end is when I started working on it, and I just built off from there. I don't want to release everything so close, but I wanted it to be where, the people that are my fans, whatever you want to call it, they could look forward to something coming up, as opposed to waiting a couple of years for something. And I picked a day that I want to release it, and released it right before Christmas, and it's selling pretty good. I want to do a book signing where I have all my books and my journals and stuff. That way people, can buy whatever they want. Yeah. And I don't make a lot of money on it. And it was never about money.
You're not a billionaire from writing?
No.
From writing books?
The first 2 books helped me survive after my injury in my shoulder, though.
Yeah.
They helped quite a bit with the cash flow situation, but
I think actually our last episode was with Bill Tanzi, and him and I were chatting. I think it was that episode where we were quickly talking about like how you don't make money on books. Like sound like I've known a few people that have written books, and some of them sold like substantial numbers of copies. And we actually had a client, I want to say it was probably like 10 years ago now, but where they had actually sold like millions of copies. So I was like, wow, you must have made $1 million bucks. And she was like, no, not even close.
Yep.
I think what she told me, she was like, it did pay for my daughter's college, which is substantial, but still she's like, but yeah, I'm not. She's like, I made enough money to put my daughter through college and to have to write another book.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Stephen King keeps throwing him out the door, right? Like,
I just wanted to put him like it was never about money. I just wanted to I always wanted to release a book from, I think it was like 2001.
It's on my list too. I just to be able to say that I did it, right?
And my coolest thing is I'm in the library at the high school. And my daughter can go grab my book if she wants to, and
that's gotta be cool for her.
Yeah. She's starting to. I mean, she's gonna be 16, so now she's starting to realize, well, Dad has done some pretty cool shit, especially with MMA and now this type of stuff. But it's funny. I go back to the girl I wrote the poem to. She's the librarian.
So oh, really?
Yeah, she's the one that got me into the library. I actually got to give her a copy when I get.
I'd say on your next book, you got to make that the first poem in the book and give it to her. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. I can go right back to being on the school bus, and I thought it was cool because I could draw Garfield.
Yeah.
And she thought that was cool that I could draw Garfield. And then I remember I wrote the first thing. She's like, because I have I screwed it up. I put 25 years on the back of this book, and it was supposed to be like 35. Because she's like, 25? Oh, that's way longer than that. Because you wrote this back then. I'm like, yeah, I sure did.
And so, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. You've got an MMA background. Yep. We didn't really get into your back story at all, although I think we have a little bit on some of the other podcasts. Right. But so why poetry though?
I have no idea. It was a good way to vent and get emotions out.
Okay.
That was, and then of course facilitated by being able to punch people in the face. But it was, I don't know. It was one of them things where I started writing and everybody's like, man, you're good at that. Like, you know how to portray or project your feelings in ways that other people can't. And I just, I remember I bought, this is before the internet was super big. I would go to Barnes & Noble and buy, it was the poetry, what the hell was it? It was a big, thick book, and it wasn't Poetry Marketplace. It was like, whatever, and they had like all these different publishing companies in there, and I would send letters back in like 2001, 2002.
To try to get published?
But back then I had fucking papers here and there.
Well, that's what the crazy thing about that whole industry is now. Like, you used to be at the whim of a small handful of people about whether or not your book was ever going to see the light of day.
Yep.
And now that's the rules have completely changed. I mean, and let's be honest. I'm not a big Jeff Bezos Amazon fan, but that guy really changed the industry, man. Like, anyone can become a published author now. Doesn't mean you're going to sell any books,
right? Yeah, when I finally pulled the trigger, I was like, of course, going back to the vulnerability thing, but I also realized that everything that I've set out in my mind without even realizing it that I've done, like, I want to be an MMA fighter. Okay. I want to be a coach and own a gym. All right, I'm gonna be a promoter. I'm gonna publish some books. All right, boom. And then with this stuff, like, I have imposter syndrome, so I don't.
Yeah, man.
I'm really bad with it too.
So real.
I wish I could. Like, watching other people get joy from stuff, and why aren't you like? I've gone to counseling for it. I'll freely admit that. Like, it's been really hard sometimes. Like.
Imposter syndrome is tough, man.
I've been working through it. I've been seeing a counselor for 2.5 years.
No kidding.
And just to try to enjoy shit is horrible. Yeah. Like, watching other people, like, man, you done this, and I'm like, yeah, wish I could like really dive into that and enjoy stuff. But it still boggles my mind. Like, everything you see here, I designed. Like, and like the inserts, the verbiage, the copyright pages, the fonts.
Will you just for I you always assume what everyone knows, but just real quick for any listeners out there that don't know what imposter syndrome is, would you just describe it to them from your standpoint?
From my standpoint, is you don't believe you deserve the things that you've achieved, and you feel like you're living somebody else's life at some points where I don't deserve that. Why is people making a big deal of that? And like, same thing with MMA. Like, this career's brought me things that I would have never imagined.
Yeah.
It was like everything got better as we went on. Like, I met Dana White back in the day.
That's cool.
16, 17 years, 18 years ago now, I think. I met Conor McGregor's parents, hung out with them at a weigh-ins before anybody really knew who Conor McGregor was. I made best friends with King Mo. Lawal's one of my best friends. He's been helping my daughter over the phone with wrestling and shit. And it just seems like, why is it like in the back of my mind, or even in the front of my mind, really that's the problem is I don't feel like I deserve it. And that's sucks because I've ran into quite a few people that have that where they're like, I got this, I got that, but I feel like I'm living. I'm
like
not
you're
worthy.
a fraud.
Yeah, I'm a fraud.
It's crazy, man.
And even like leading up to the book, everybody's like, you got like the people that have bought the books and stuff. Yeah, got no. Oh man, that's so awesome. You should be so. And it's just like, yeah, like it hasn't fully hit me. And I always like. I think if I were to like walk through a Target or a bookstore and see my book up, I think that might slap me in the face. I've always had that that vision in my mind.
Yeah.
And it might happen someday, but just being in the library at the fucking high school is mind-boggling to me. Like,
yeah,
I think I'm the only parent in that school that is in the library. I'm assuming that it could be different, but it's just like it's weird. But
yeah, it's I say interesting. It's I have struggled with it too, and I know. But here's the thing: so many people I know struggle with imposter syndrome in so many different areas and arenas. Like, like even with marketing, I've been doing this for 10 years, man. I can tell you probably the first 8 years of doing this, I was just like, who the hell am I to tell people how they should be marketing? But blah, blah, blah. But I am.
Yeah.
I am credible. Like, it is, so
right.
It's such a weird thing, man. And I've seen it like with yoga teachers where they struggle with that, or just so many different businesses and so many different professionals where they're just like, well, I just don't know. Even people that have gone through extensive training in college and all, and they still are like, well, how long have you been doing it? Like, oh, I'm new to it. I've only been doing it for like 10 years. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome's a real thing. Hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes to this. It goes to the same thing with the whole MMA realm. Like, I'm one of the OGs that people like. I don't call myself that, but I've been told that. I mean, I've been around since Chad Beatty started.
Yeah,
I used to work for Chad Beatty.
Chad's the OG of OGs.
He's one of the forefathers, I call it, of upstate. I think he facilitated and started Cage Combat. You had other stuff going on, but up this area, he was the.
Well, him and I were talking. I don't know, maybe a couple months now. And I might have said this to you and Don the last time you were on the show, but we were sitting there chatting and talking about all the different jiu-jitsu that's in the area. And he goes, 90% of that jiu-jitsu came from me. He's like, and he wasn't saying it like an ego statement. He was just making the observation that like he was one of the first, if not the first person in the area that was really doing jiu-jitsu. He started, he was Spa City Jiu-Jitsu.
Spa City.
And, so you got like Eddie Fivey that ended up buying it from Chad.
Yep.
You've got Secor. You got all these guys that trained under Chad for the last 30, almost 40 years.
And Bruchak, I think, trained.
Bruchak's trained, because I think they started out at Spa City, right? So it's just like all this jiu-jitsu that you see all around us, and I think maybe Atlas may be the only one that's the exception that is not somehow in Chad's lineage.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
Yeah. And we go back quite a while. Like I would judge his shows for free.
Yeah.
I would drive over to Bennington, Vermont. I would go anywhere he wanted me to.
That was the Cage Combat that he did, right?
Yeah. And that's what me and my ex-business partner bought it from him.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
Like, I just did it because of love for the business. I didn't give a shit if I made money. To this day, I still don't care.
That's my question about the fight promotion stuff, right? And just in general, not with you guys, but I was always like, when he told me that he had that, because I didn't realize that he did. And then I was like, I'm like, why would you give that up? I'm like, but I guess it's, when you think about all the fighting industry in general, like the percentage of people that are the Dana Whites. Yeah. And even like Dana, like what's his story? Like he bought the UFC, and then I think Rogan was actually talking about it on an episode recently where he was saying that like basically they just got lucky that these two billionaires showed up and were like, hey, we'd like to throw a bunch of money into this thing and help you guys grow
Dana
it.
and Lorenzo and Lorenzo's brother, the Fertitta brothers. They all grew up together, went to high school, and Dana was teaching boxercise classes in Boston, ended up fleeing Boston because of Whitey Bulger.
Really?
Ended up back out in Vegas, and then I think it was EMG that wanted to sell, and they ended up buying the UFC for cheap.
Yeah, cheap. Got it at a garage sale.
They sold it for $4 billion or something like that. That's a good turnaround on your money. But the Fertittas, they had their money from the Station casinos in Vegas, which is the only non-union casinos out there.
Yeah. So that whole industry is just fascinating to me about how like Dana's story I think is really cool. And again, like it's really funny to talk about like haters and stuff, but like people are like, oh, they got lucky because these billionaires showed up. It's like, well, I mean, what's luck, right? Yeah. Preparation meeting opportunity. Like you do the work, and then you're in the right place, the right time, because the right place and right time is going to happen if you do the work.
Yep.
Right.
And you got to do the work. And I think a lot of people fall short. It's like I didn't do the work for 20 years before I released my first book.
Yeah.
But there's one day I got it. Like, I need to do this for me. Two, after I'm gone, these books will still be around for the rest
it's cool.
of eternity. I have my daughter they're dedicated to her. Like,
there's something, listen, I can remember, so the first time I wrote an article for a magazine was like, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. It was a sales article, right? So I wrote the sales column. It wasn't even an article. It was a column in a magazine, trade magazine. Not a big deal, right? But still, like, it was funny because I wasn't bearing my soul like you do in your books. Right. But when you were talking about the vulnerability, I remember the first time, like, when I sent my first article over to the editor, and I was just like, I'm not kidding you. I must have been a stress case, panic attacks for like a week because you're just so, and but it was really cool to be able to say, well, I'm a published author at this point, right? Yeah. Not a book author. That's not on my resume yet, but it's on the list.
First thing I ever had published was in the Whitehall Times. I did wrote a poem right after 9/11, and they put it in the Whitehall Times. And then there was a scam company called, I think it was Poetry.com, that put out books, but you had to buy the book that your poem was in. And I wrote a poem, and it was in a book called Under a Quicksilver Moon, but I had to pay.
Was there 100,000 other poems in there?
Yeah. People had to pay to get their poem, and I'm like, and it was like $48 back in like 2002.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a book.
Why would I buy that? No, I'm like, I'm good. But
that's funny.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money for a book back in 2002.
Yeah,
remember what magazines cost? Matt, you get a magazine for $1.99 now. Like I go to the store now, they're like $20. I'm like, shit,
it's
no,
insane.
man.
Like my grandfather in Whitehall, my grandparents owned the laundromat. Right next door was five and dime store, basically. They had like a soda fountain, all that shit in there. And we'd go, he'd buy me a wrestling magazine or a comic book.
Like a WWF magazine?
I still have them to this day.
That's
like
funny.
I have from 86 to all the way to like 91. And we would go there. We'd walk back to the next door to the laundromat. He'd open up the Coke machine. Another vivid memory, and it was when New Coke came out. Open it up, and I remember him going, yeah, we just got this in today. And it was the New Coke formula that didn't last very long, thank God. And that was a regular thing for quite a few years. You just
was it in a bottle? Was it in the
No, it was a can.
It was a can?
Yep.
They'd already made the jump to cans at that point.
Yep. So I think that was like 85-ish when that happened. But yeah, for a couple of years, he'd bring me over there. I think it started when I was younger. I would get Matchboxes, but then I graduated to comic books and then the wrestling magazine. Once a month, boom, we'd go down there.
That's funny.
And he's Welch. We would call him Tide. His name was Arv, but Tide in Welsh is his grandfather. So
okay.
he'd be like, "Come on, Jace, we're gonna go down there." I'm like, okay, so, but yeah,
Getting a Coke out of it and a magazine.
free Coke, and that's what. And nostalgia purposes, every time I drink a Coke, I'm not bullshitting you. I think of them days.
That's funny.
And that's like, I'm not a Pepsi hater, but my fiance drinks Pepsi, and I'm
I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that. You're still marrying her.
and my mom does too. So the best part is
Can't pick your family.
when I first met King Mo 10 years ago, he's a Pepsi guy.
Oh, yeah?
So I bust his balls on Pepsi. When he first met my mother, of course, she had to give him a Pepsi. So for Christmas 4 years ago, you could get them custom Cokes made, and I sent him one. And
With his name on it?
It says King Mo on it. Yeah.
Nice.
So he still bust his balls. Every time he asks me, "How's your mother?" She's good. She's still drinking Pepsi, dickhead.
I can't do the Pepsi. I'm not a fan.
I never
I don't know. I feel like Coke is just a little, I mean, to be fair, I don't drink any of that crap
Right.
anymore, but it's just the carbonation's different,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm.
I like the Mexican Cokes in the glass bottle. It tastes so
yeah?
much different in the glass bottle, and
I agree.
They don't use high fructose corn syrup. They use real sugar cane.
Interesting.
So
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
like my buddy Sam, who owns the 2 strains in the Aviation Mall.
Oh, yeah.
He just bought a case of them, and he gave me one of them. So, but
That
yeah.
place is cool, huh? Mm-hmm. Allegedly.
yeah, right.
Well, it's funny. So we're actually Saratoga Business Report, our quarterly business magazine, Saratoga County. My dog wants to come in. We're about to release our cannabis issue,
Right.
And it's just the whole cannabis industry thing is interesting to me right now because there's still some stigma,
Tweaks, yeah.
that is kind of holding on with people. So it's like we had a couple of advertisers didn't want to be in this magazine. Sorry, everyone, about my dog barking. He's decided that he wants to bark. But it's really interesting, just like the weird transition period that we're in right now with all that stuff, where there's a dispensary on almost every corner.
Yeah.
Right. But still, you still kind of feel like you got to hide it from your parents, right?
Which I'll tell you a story. I won't say who it was, but
Wait, hold on. Let me let him out because
Okay.
he's not going to stop. Yeah, sorry about that. He literally was going to do that, and then our listeners were going to think that I abuse my dogs or something.
he just let him sit there.
I know, right? So you were going to say, I'm sorry.
I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
Your parents.
My parents?
We were talking about hiding marijuana from your parents.
Oh, no. We're at the person remained nameless.
Yes.
We're at the gym, and we went in, came out, and she was hiding behind her car door, lighting the bowl. And I'm like, "Hey, do you realize that's legal?
It's
now,
legal
right?"
now,
She's
yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot."
Yeah. I don't even smoke it, but
This is a couple
I don't
years
really care about if anybody else smokes
Yeah,
it.
me either.
But it's just, I laugh because it's like I'll be talking to a friend of mine that's like our age,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, well, blah, blah. I'm like, the 22-year-old kid over there does not care walking down the street smoking a joint. Like, it's legal now, man. It's like, it's almost more legal than alcohol is at this point because you can smoke a joint walking down the street. You can't drink a beer walking down the street.
One of our biggest sponsors is one of my best friends, Joe Kelly's Northern Lights Dispensary out of
Oh,
Malta.
yeah.
And then
They got a good business, man.
yeah, he's killing it down there. I think he's getting ready to open one in Granville, New York, too.
No kidding.
And he does delivery, like 80-mile radius or something crazy.
That's
like
insane. I didn't know that they did delivery.
That. And they teamed
What a
up
world.
with Magnitude out of I forgot where they're out of. They sell like the cartridges, that type of stuff, and they have a parent company which is, I think it's like pharmaceutical grade cannabis, and they're supposedly, I'm hoping they're bringing up Matt Farola of the UFC to do come by the fights and shit and do like a meet and greet and shit. So he's supposed to be there, and so
That's cool. Yeah, what a that industry's on fire right now.
literally.
Yeah. They're lighting it up. Puns intended. So I know we're probably getting close on time here. If I have my glasses on, I can't see a damn thing. But I'm of that age, Jed. I don't know about you, but we're the same age, and I literally, unless I put my readers on, I can't read anything.
If I got my contacts in, I have to have my readers. But if I take these off, I can't fucking see shit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to see your hat.
I did discover if I shine a very bright light directly on a word, I can read it somewhat.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, but the more light, just need a lot more light to see anything, read anything. But I do want to, I do want to circle back to the books though. And I just think the contrast between your background and what you write,
Right.
Is just really interesting.
Yeah. I've done a good job of,
like the warrior poet kind of
yeah.
thing, right? That's,
yeah. I always say I could strangle you and make you cry at the same time.
can throw a choke on you, or
Yeah.
I can write something for you that will get you emotional.
Yeah. I think it's because I've always been kind of attentive on my emotions and be able to, like, I'll throw this out there quick. I blew my shoulder out at work. Been dealing with it for like 4 years. I've had surgery. I had my bicep tendon was torn, so they had to clip it and reattach it.
Fun.
So I've been dealing with that, and I had recently spoke to a lawyer. I actually hired a lawyer. I have to go sign paperwork today, and between the lawyer and my doctor's nurse and the people who work at the ortho that I go to are amazed that I haven't flipped out and gone crazy of dealing with what I've dealt with. This first thing the lawyer said, "You've been doing this for this long? You haven't?" I'm like, "No, I think it's my MMA background where, I can control my emotions now." Like, I'll admit, before I got into MMA, like, if I didn't get into MMA, I probably would have died in a bar fight. That's my take on things. It was almost every night at certain times, or not every night, every weekend.
You think getting punched in the face kind of turns the volume down on things a little bit?
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was out of control for quite a few years there. Like, it was pretty hazy. The 20 between 19 and 24 is
Sure.
pretty hazy, and like I've found some stuff that I wrote back then too, and I think it's finding that the both things keep me grounded. Like, instead of going out and flipping out and making something worse when it doesn't need to be worse, like writing stuff or even reading shit that I've read, or realizing that I'm not a tough guy in any sense, but I know how to defend myself, and if I have to, I will. But it's not about that. And if you can control your emotions, you don't get into trouble. And there's been quite a few instances in the last couple of years where, I've controlled my emotions pretty good, where if we were 25 years ago, it would have probably been a bad thing. But,
And, in my experience, losing your shit does not make anything better.
No. I've looked back and go, oh, wow. Like, I wish they had cell phone cameras back in the late 90s.
Oh my God! I thank God they didn't, man.
I'd probably be in prison for a couple of them. But
moly!
like, I shit you not, it was every night, or not every night, like every weekend at Phineas T. Flubberbusters.
The Flubberbusters.
It was an adventure, man. I broke my hand one weekend and came back the next weekend in a cast and fought with my left hand.
And still got in a fight. That was all part of the process, right?
Yeah. The good old
Go
days.
out, have some drinks,
Yep.
start a fight.
I never started a fight. They always found me. Like, I'll tell you a quick story, just because I think you'll be like, holy shit. My buddy Chris and we went up there. Well, so did the St. Joseph basketball team. Well, he had recently got his tongue pierced, and there was a girl that really wanted to kiss a guy that got his tongue pierced. So she kisses him on the dance floor. He goes out, sits on the deck, and he's having a cigarette. This kid comes out. Her boyfriend that she didn't say he had.
Yeah, that's a bad.
And they got all these guys to the right of me, very tall,
athletic looking fellows.
athletic looking fellows. And this kid comes out and says, "You, my girlfriend," and throws a right hand and knocks Chris completely out. He had his head dangling on the rail.
Oh my God!
And I went to step to like grab the guy, and next thing you know, I'm getting like back down the steps by all these guys, and I'm standing there, and this guy that I met like earlier in the night goes, "Hey Jay, you're bleeding." I'm like, "I'm bleeding?" One of the dudes had punched me in the ear and had cut it so bad that it bled. It was all the way into my sock before I even knew that.
Oh my God!
And I never felt it. Like,
you didn't even know you got hit?
Didn't even know I got hit.
Adrenaline's a weird thing.
And that was, and I remember plain as day, I get home and I was with my dad. I think I had been like 21, 22. And I left and I came back. Well, anyway, I get home. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. He meets me at like the stairs before I go up. And of course I got my hand over my ear and my shirt's all blood. And he's like, "You're going to end up dead up there one of these days. When you going to learn?"
Flubberbusters, man.
Yeah. And then I'm tempted to write a book of just the stupid shit
About the
that went up there.
Flubberbusters experience.
God, dude. I've helped bounce up there, but I've got.
Do they have like RVs or something up there now, right?
It's abandoned now.
It's abandoned now?
They're trying to. A guy was trying to open back up, but
I haven't been through that way in a while.
That place was a. I told my fiance, I'm like, people used to drive up from Albany.
Oh yeah,
to
it
go
was
to that
like
place.
I remember hearing about it.
Yeah.
I never went there.
It was insane.
Yeah, that was just too far for me to drive. That sounded like a DWI to me.
Yeah, that definitely. Yep.
Yeah, but Flubberbusters, wow.
Yeah, that place had a lure, and I walked almost all the way back to Whitehall one night. I got kicked out.
That's a hike, man.
Called the sheriffs on me. I walked.
Yeah.
The stupid, like it's way like a whole nother life. I look back and go, wow, yeah, that was me.
Well, what's the saying? Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment.
Yeah, that sure does. Yep. But
Jay, if people want to check out your books, they want to learn more about it, how do they go about doing that?
go on Amazon, or you can Google search me, and because these books are available on all different platforms, not just Amazon. Just Google Jason Ingleston poetry, and a bunch of different websites will pop up. The first two books will probably be in your first search thing, but if you go directly to Amazon and type in The Path Ahead, I'm going to pop up, and that's the newest book. I do have a writer's profile on Amazon. That come up too. The first two books are available through Kindle too, so you can get them on Kindle. I was going to release this one on Kindle, but with the notes thing and people like, I kind of forego that. These are also available in hardcover too. This one, not yet. So
Okay.
and then the other book that I feel bad for, it's kind of the bastard child book. It's still available on Barnes and Noble. This book will probably be available at Barnes & Noble in a couple months because that's usually the way their wide distribution works. But they're on there. And my journal that came out right before this is available on there too. So just type in Jason Ingleston Poetry and all my happy stuff will come up.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming out to the
man.
farm.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Make sure you guys check out his book, and make sure you check out our other shows as well. You can find our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and of course the listings for all of those is on glensfallsbusinessreport.com or saratogabusinessreport.com. Thanks for listening, and you'll hear from us next week.